Hello and welcome to the highlights from the past week on the UK Tonight. Coming up, Love Islander Amy Hart talks to us about cyberflashing after the first sentencing for that new offence in England and Wales. And Harry Kane on the bench. We'll talk about the statue of the England captain that was finished 5 years ago but is still yet to find a home. But first, Maddie Lawrence was a promising young rugby player when an injury on the field led to a trip to hospital. The neglect she suffered there contributed to her death from sepsis. Well, now her parents are working with the hospital to help educate staff and remind them of the human cost of a lack of care. I spoke to Karen and Simon Lawrence this week and I asked them to tell me about Maddie.
She'd always been fast, hadn't she, ever since she was at school, beating the boys. And when she found rugby, she also found her speed to her huge advantage, of course. And so they nicknamed her Twinkle Toes. Yes, she really enjoyed sport and was very physical, wasn't she?
She really was. She was also loud.
Yes.
Energetic, and she didn't take much nonsense from people.
Yeah.
So she was ideal for being a rugby player because she was bold.
Yeah.
What happened to Maddie on the field that landed her in hospital in the first place?
Well, she got tackled and she dislocated her hip. And I really like to make the point that her opponent bore we don't bear any ill will towards her because she was just tackling her opponent. And it was just a really unfortunate set of circumstances meant that she did dislocate her hip. What was dreadful was that she was stuck on the pitch for near on 6 hours.
Waiting for an ambulance.
Waiting for an ambulance. And though that had no actual effect on her outcome, it was just incredibly uncomfortable. And the poor girl did suffer. And they finally got her into the hospital. And when they did get her into the hospital, she was in reasonably good shape. I mean, apart from the fact that she'd dislocated her hip.
But her spirits were high. You in fact had a bit of a joke with her, didn't you?
Absolutely.
Yep, absolutely.
And she was really pleased to say, oh, look, my first rugby injury. And it's a doozy. So, yes, she was in good shape. But sadly, she slowly started to deteriorate and it wasn't recognised. It wasn't recognised by the clinical staff and it wasn't recognised by the nursing. They just saw that she was an increasingly difficult patient, young woman who was just complaining an awful lot.
And this came out in the inquest, didn't it, in terms of a consultant that was involved in Maddie's care admitted there'd been some unconscious bias in her treatment. She was a fit young woman. She was a rugby player.
Exactly.
What did you see over the course of the 2 weeks? Because Maddie picked up an infection that went unnoticed for days by hospital staff, and it meant that the crucial window for treatment for sepsis, which she developed, was missed. She eventually died of sepsis and multiple organ failure. The coroner found gross failures in her treatment at Southmead Hospital in Bristol, saying her death was contributed to by neglect. Now, you saw this happening with your own eyes. If you can, talk to me about what was going on during those 2 weeks.
Well, she was...
This was when Maddie was on the hospital ward.
Yeah, because in the hospital ward, we saw some reasonable treatment. I mean, you know, some care. But obviously, and what we had no idea about and we would have certainly complained more about, was the fact that she didn't get the observations, she didn't go through the due process that she should have done. And because of that, it was missed.
What was it like, Karen, to know that Maddie wasn't listened to? Because, Simon, you talked about Maddie being loud. She is a girl that can advocate for herself. You advocated for her to the best of your ability. But what was it like to know that she wasn't listened to and that guidance was not followed?
It's a really hard question, in as much that it's unbearable to think about it. Of course. In that, had she been listened to, had we made more of a fuss, had we known what to make a fuss about, then she would still be with us. She should have been home by the weekend.
She was in there for a dislocated hip.
Yeah, she was
painful,
but
terribly painful, and
straightforward.
Yeah, she should have been home within. The scan should have been done. Antibiotics should have been given, and she should have been home by the weekend.
Because she was in NHS care over the weekend, and that was the crucial period.
Yeah.
Where if she had been diagnosed with sepsis,
yeah,
it could have been different.
I do think that the fact that it was the weekend did have a big bearing on it, but ultimately the staff were there, and it was what was most unbearable to acknowledge is the fact that staffing wasn't lack of staffing.
It was neglect. That's what the coroner said.
It was lack of care, and she wasn't listened to in these screams of pain. She was considered to be a difficult patient. These scores were the top level. She must have been in absolute agony. And the fact that no observations were taken over the course of 16 hours, it just begs belief. And that was her dying, actually, not being difficult, but sepsis setting in. And, she was dying. Unbearable.
And it's something we hear so much from families. You know, people watching at home will think that when they go into hospital, they're grateful for care. They want to do everything to get things moving quickly. They don't want to disrupt things.
Exactly. It's very hard to not contradict, but question and ask for these things when you are there dealing with professionals. Apart from not knowing what you're meant to be asking for half the time, to actually contradict what they're saying, that isn't easy.
How are you both now?
There's a question. You bear a weight the whole time. You bear, you know, as soon as you wake up, you have a day-to-day life. And more importantly, you still have Juliet, our other daughter, and she is so important to us. It's so important because she's showing such guts. She is continuing with her university education. She comes into a final year, and she is showing such a remarkable fortitude.
So tell me a bit about Maddie's Mark. This is something that you're doing this month, and you're encouraging everyone to get involved in memory of Maddie.
This month specifically, we're doing Maddie's March, which we hope will be an annual event, and everyone who's taking part is doing 104, because that's how many weeks it is since Maddie passed away. 104 kilometres running or walking or rowing, or someone's making 104 cakes. I mean,
I like the sound of that one.
Yes.
We'll let you know where
Yeah, please do.
So everyone's coming together to raise money. The charity is what helps us enormously.
Yeah.
You're right when you say we have to take something positive from losing Maddie.
It gives us a chance to look up.
Yeah.
And
chance to get up.
What it is. We're introducing as many children and young women as we can to rugby through Maddie's Mark, and therein helping hugely with their mental health
and physical health.
Mental and physical health and well-being.
The first person convicted under England and Wales' new cyber flashing law has been jailed for 15 months. The problem has become so widespread that more than 3/4 of teenage girls say they've fallen victim to it. Matt Barbette spoke to Love Islander and cyber flashing campaigner Amy Hart earlier on this week.
Amy, thanks so much for joining me. Tell us what happened to you.
Thanks for having me. Well, from when I came out of the Love Island villa, I went from 2,500 followers to 750,000, hitting 1.3 million a couple of weeks later. And my experience of social media before I went into Love Island was really positive. And then there's a lot of trial and tribulations that come with a following that's grown exponentially. And one of those is cyber flashing. So I had, I still have now, unsolicited pictures in my DMs of men's genitals, being tagged in stories that are explicit pictures, and it's just awful.
How do you deal with it?
I block people, but luckily for all of us, these two women have been so brave and have taken this to the police, and now we have got the first conviction, the first sentencing.
What do you think about the conviction and sentencing today? This man gets 15 months in prison as a result.
Well, I think it's brilliant. I think it shows that it's being taken really seriously. I hope it will give other people the courage to report things like this. Obviously, I do think the law needs to be taken further as well. At the moment, it's intent-based. It needs to be consent-based. So he pleaded guilty. He said that he was sharing those pictures to harm, humiliate, or cause offence, whereas anyone could say, oh, it was just a joke, it was just banter. So the law needs to be changed so it's consent-based. Have you consented to receiving that picture? No, you haven't. So it's wrong.
Do you wonder what goes through their minds doing this? Because we've been discussing it today on the team, thinking, why would you? Why on earth would someone want to do this? Do you stop and think about that?
I do, and I really don't understand. I don't understand anything, but I think it is. We have got the statistics. Is how it starts. They start by cyber flashing, and if they're not caught out, they do go on to do worse things in violence against predominantly women and girls. But it does apply to everyone.
Is that the case? Is it a sort of gateway to worse behaviour, you think?
Yes, 100%, because there's only so many times that you'll get that thrill out of sending a picture online before you go out and do something worse. You know, people sort of flashing in real life has been a thing for a long time. Now people can do it without even leaving their house.
Look, I'm a dad of girls and they both use social media. What would you say to them about it?
Just to make sure you've only, your settings are really sort of iron tight so people can't message you if you don't know them, especially teenage girls. Block people, report people, and, if someone cyber flashes you, take it to the police.
The Queen has told well-wishers in Belfast that the King is doing well and she's trying to keep him in order as he undergoes cancer treatment. The Queen was greeted by crowds on Lisbon Road in South Belfast, where she was handed a get well soon card for the King. She travelled to Northern Ireland alone. However, the King did carry out engagements at Buckingham Palace, and the Queen told the crowds that he was disappointed he couldn't join her.
Your Majesty, I hope the Queen is doing well.
Give some room, guys.
Well, big crowds to meet the Queen. She admitted, though, that she had been upstaged by this little boy right here. She was visiting businesses on the Lisbon Road. She met former Blue Peter presenter Zoe Salmon and her husband Will Corrie, as well as their one-year-old son Fitz. The Queen clearly very pleased to meet him and delighted with the effort he put into his outfit.
It was not a natural for the cameras. It was him. Hello.
Well, I'm very glad to say that Zoe, Will and Fitz. Corrie Salmon join me now from Belfast. Well done to Fitz for staying up late to be here on the UK Tonight. We know what the Queen thought of Fitz, but the big question is, I guess, Zoe and Will, what did Fitz think of the Queen?
Oh, I think he was very taken with her. She made him feel so relaxed that he just walked on in after her into knots and was just loving life. All the photographers, he's never been in that environment before, but he felt so at ease and at home because she was so warm and welcoming. And you've had a great day, haven't you? You loved the Queen, didn't you?
Look, he's desperate to say something. I've got a toddler myself, and I know at one they're desperate to speak. So, all the toddlers, if they're up at home, will be understanding what Fitz is saying. But I'm very impressed that you've managed to keep him in his tux and keep it so clean. It's been a big day for him and a big day for you all.
Yes, it's a day that we will remember for forever, a very momentous and memorable day and, just something for all the family to celebrate. And we were so grateful that Fitz could be there and be part of it. And yeah, he really has been well behaved. So I'm hoping it'll last for this interview. We're just keeping him occupied with a few nibbles, aren't we? But yes, he's been very good keeping his shirt clean. He's lost the jacket, so he's relaxing now into bedtime, aren't you?
Yeah, that's it. The toddlers start taking their clothes off at this stage, don't they? And like you said,
it'll be the bow tie next and the trousers and the socks.
It's the grapes and the clear liquids just to keep him presentable for TV. And Will, obviously, you own the bakery there on the Lisbon Road. Did the Queen have anything to take away for the King as she left?
She did, yes. Not so famous for our fruit loaf and our iced Madeira. So she got a fruit loaf and an iced Madeira cake. And she said she would enjoy it later. So I really hope she does.
And there you go. Fitz heard fruit loaf and went, give me that, not the grapes. And just in terms of why the Queen was there today, like you said, Zoe, it's such a momentous occasion. You know, what was the buzz around her being there? Because, of course, she did talk to crowds about the King and everybody wanted to wish him well and find out how he was getting on. Did you have a little chat to her about that?
She was so warm and friendly. Yes, we both spoke to her. Well, you spoke to her at length because you were really great at talking through all the amazing produce. And she saw Fitz and straight away she was like, "What's his name?" And she commented on his outfit, and she was really lovely. And we saw her speaking to a lot of the crowds, and she really worked her way around that area of Belfast, Lisburn Road, and everyone was just really in high spirits to see her, and it was a real buzz for the area and for Belfast.
Well, look, I'm sure it's not Fitz's last royal audience, not when he's looking as dapper as that. As a parent, I know you're on borrowed time, so thank you so much for letting him stay up past his bedtime to join us on the UK Tonight. It is a big year for football with the Euros coming up this summer. But in a shocking move, the England captain Harry Kane has been left on the bench. Fear not, though, we're not talking about the real life Harry Kane, but a statue of the Bayern Munich striker. The artwork commissioned by his local council, Waltham Forest, 5 years ago. However, a permanent home for the statue hasn't been found, leaving him stuck in storage. And as you can see, warming the bench, a very unusual position for Harry Kane to be in. Well, let's speak to Ian Marshall. He's chairman of Ridgeway Rovers, Harry Kane's youth club. Good to see you here on the UK Tonight. What did you think about the statue when you first saw it?
I'm trying to keep a straight face, but it's an interesting. Well, the way they put it together, it's a very interesting image of Harry, is what I'm going to say on that. I live in the borough, so I have to be careful what I say.
Artistic licence, I think, was taken. And we know Harry Kane, you know him better than I do and most people watching, but what we do know of him is he's a very polite young man. What do you think he'll have made of it?
I think the gesture, of having a statue of Harry will take, obviously great pride in having that sort of thing come from the local authority, from the area that he was born in, played football in as a kid. Still got a lot of his family members, I believe, still in the area generally. So I'm sure he'll be very proud of that. The statue itself, they say that art is in the eye of the beholder, I think, is the way that you've got to put it. I saw it yesterday on a news thing, and I actually had the volume down, and I didn't know what it was. I thought it was because it's Easter, someone had made a chocolate footballer, and they were going to, sort of have it for Easter, then break it up and give it to kids at hospitals and schools and things like this, so they could have some chocolate. But I didn't realise at the time, and it's only when I spoke to one of your researchers, I actually looked into it. And as I say, I'm trying to keep a straight face, so.
A chocolate Harry Kane, you've given someone a great business idea there. It couldn't find a home. We have heard from a councillor at Waltham Forest who says the statue does have a home and it's going to be launched in the coming months. But where do you think the statue should go? You're from the borough, you know the area well. Where would be a fitting place for him to call home?
I'm trying to keep a straight face. But I would say, obviously, he lived very near a park called Ridgeway Park, ironically. His school was opposite Ridgeway Park, and he played for Ridgeway Rovers as a kid. So Ridgeway Park would be a good place for it to go, I assume. Whether that be permitted or not, who knows? Walt Disney was there at one point, apparently in 1953, on the little train thing they've got riding around the park. So, quite befitting, really, I suppose. But, that sort of area would probably be the best place for some sort of monument to Harry once his career's done, perhaps. But, he's still got plenty of winning to do. I'm hoping he's going to do that in the summer. So, for the rest of the country as well. So I'm very hopeful with the team they've got together.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure the statue is going to be unveiled before the Euros for local residents and those who live in the borough. We look forward to seeing where Harry Kane ends up. Now, we always like to leave you with something weird or wonderful here on the UK Tonight, and this next story certainly falls into both of those categories. One shop owner in Orkney had to scramble to hatch a plan after an excessive order for Easter. Dan Duffy, the owner of Sinclair General Stores on the Orkney island of Sanday, meant to order 80 chocolate eggs, but accidentally ordered 80 cases, which means he's been left with 720 eggs, way more than is needed for the population of 500 people. Well, I'm pleased to say that he's now raffling off 100 of the eggs to a lucky winner in aid of the RNLI. And Dan joins us now to tell us all about this extraordinary story. I'm sorry, Dan, I had to put you through that. So talk to me about what happened when all these eggs arrived.
Yeah, firstly, I can't believe how much this story's blown up. But yeah, when the eggs arrived, it was slightly embarrassing for me. Couldn't really pass on the blame, so just kind of had to laugh a little bit and get on with it.
Well, I can see them all behind you. You can't move for Easter eggs. So talk to me about the population of the island you're on and how many Easter eggs you sell on average over that period.
Yeah, so we're on the beautiful Isle of Sandy here in Orkney, and I believe the population is somewhere around 500 people. Mm-hmm. So we would have roughly thought we'd probably sell around 80 Easter eggs. So the idea was to get 80 Easter eggs in. Little did I know I was ordering 80 cases of Easter eggs. So yeah, we've been left with 1 or 2 extra.
Oh, well, Dan, look, the challenge is on. I'm somebody that eats more than 1 Easter egg over Easter, maybe more than 2. So the challenge is on for the people of the island to help you out here, because obviously you've paid for them all, but you're also going to raffle off to raise some money for the RNLI. What are your other plans? How many Easter eggs can you eat?
Yeah, to be honest, look, I never for a minute imagined that the people would enjoy this story so much, but this kind of story has been floating around now for maybe 2 days, and we've gone crazy with sales. So I think we're down to about our last 100 now, bar the 100 we're giving away. So yeah, the people of the island and the people of Orkney and people as far afield as Swindon, which sounds crazy, have got right behind us and have bought all the eggs.
I love this. So come Easter weekend, you might not actually have any left. Is there time to order some more correctly, Dan?
As crazy as it sounds, I think we might need to get some more in just for the residents here.
Well, that's it from the UK Tonight for this week. Join us again on Monday night at 8 o'clock.